Is American Psycho actually about a psychopath? That is, does Patrick Bateman have antisocial personality disorder? Okay, so about 10 years ago, I posted my first video on YouTube, and it was about Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. It was a school project. I was in grad school at the time at Seattle University, and I was looking to see if Jake Gyllenhaal's character had antisocial personality disorder. And ever since I made that video, I've gotten a lot of comments and messages from people asking me to also make a video about American Psycho. Now, I've been reluctant to make a video about American Psycho because there's already a ton of material out there, and it just felt a little too obvious or redundant. But I did recently rewatch the movie, and it's crazy because the movie came out in the year 2000. It's currently January of 2025, so it's been out for 25 years, and obviously the novel was out even before that. It's just a crazy thought. It's crazy to think that American Psycho is 25 years old. You know, it was about an era in the mid to late 80s, so by the time that the movie came out, it was only a little over a decade beyond the era that it was actually looking at. And so now in 2025, we are very far removed from that. So I will say that when I first watched American Psycho, when it first, came out, I was much younger at the time, obviously. And I was watching it with my friends, and I remember at the time, I actually had a lot of friends who didn't like it very much because it, quote, wasn't scary. But on my most recent viewing, which I just watched it yesterday, it's clear to me that it's quite a bit more complicated than that. There's at least 3 different ways that you can watch American Psycho. You can view it from the easiest perspective, which is that this is about a serial killer, kind of told from his perspective mostly, and it's just sort of documenting his exploits, going around murdering people. And I think that's how a lot of people watched the movie when it first came out, especially in the younger demographic. It was that was what everybody kind of wanted to see. They were going to the movie to watch a serial killer. They wanted to be scared. They wanted to see something that was horrific or exploitative. But then there was this other conversation happening though, where the discussion was, well, it's not really about a serial killer. It's about somebody who is fantasizing about being a serial killer. That's another lens that you can watch the movie through. But to me, the most fun lens to watch the movie through is that it actually doesn't matter if he is doing the murders or not doing the murders, because the society is indifferent either way. Meaning that there are multiple scenes where he is, either talking about killing somebody, he's making a threat towards somebody else, he is pontificating about his need to engage in homicidal behavior, or he's flat out confessing to what he's done. And the response in almost every case in the movie is indifference. What that shows is that really this isn't about just one serial killer. This is about a culture where being a serial killer or not doesn't matter. It's obviously a very negative view of that culture. And actually, to me, the most horrific character in the movie is not Patrick Bateman. It's actually his fiancée, played by Reese Witherspoon. She is trying to talk to him multiple times throughout the movie, and he is just cold and distant, not paying attention to her at all. But she doesn't care. In fact, there's a scene where he is trying to break up with her. He tells her that he is wanting to kill people, and she's just not listening or doesn't care, totally not interested in what he's saying. Instead, she's pushing forward with what she wants, which is to get married. She just seems to be completely fixated on marrying him, doesn't care about him or who he is or anything. What matters to her is the status, the fact that he's the head of this company that his dad owns, and so she knows she's marrying into wealth and she'll be set for life, and it's kind of a status thing. That's what it feels like anyway. So she doesn't care if he's murdering people or not murdering people. She doesn't know anything about him at all. he's literally disgusted with her throughout the whole movie, and she doesn't care. She's not receptive. So to me, that makes her one of the scariest characters in the movie, because she has no empathy at all. She's not able to listen to him, to hear what he's saying, to pay attention to him. She's not even interested in knowing him. She's only interested in what he can do for her, and that's it. If you want to look at it from a strictly clinical perspective, and let's say that this person is actually a murderer. So if you go through the criteria of antisocial personality disorder, it's pretty likely that Patrick Bateman is going to fit that criteria. You know, the kind of main hallmarks of antisocial personality disorder, which we've covered multiple other movies on this channel with characters who meet that criteria: reckless disregard for the safety of self or others, deceitfulness, lack of empathy, engaging in physical assaults, physical crimes, other criminal activity. Obviously, he pretty clearly meets that criteria. But the thing that I will say that's interesting is that the portrayal of antisocial personality disorder, if you're looking at it through that lens when watching American Psycho, he's actually this very over-the-top, very charming, very successful murderer. And what's more common with antisocial personality disorder is they're actually not that clever most of the time. They're usually not very successful financially. And they're not just kind of running around with this gleeful bloodlust where they're just thrilled with what they're doing and kind of super over the top presentation, which is what you see in American Psycho. That's the performance that Christian Bale gives as Patrick Bateman. And again, I think that just adds to the fantasy element, to the idea that this is just somebody living out some kind of a fantasy in a very warped world. Even the killer is not behaving in a way that a normal killer or a person with antisocial personality disorder would behave traditionally. He can't read social situations very well. There's stuff going on all around him, and he's got two women who are making out right in front of him, and he's just philosophizing about music and talking about Whitney Houston, and he talks about Phil Collins and Huey Lewis, and just going on and on and on about these things, not reading the situation, like he's in his own world, not a normal way to behave. So the other thing to talk about is, if this is somebody who is just having fantasies and isn't actually carrying out these murders, which is certainly one of the ways that the movie is often interpreted, I think under that interpretation, then he's not going to meet criteria for antisocial personality disorder, because simply having thoughts of wanting to harm or murder others does not mean that you meet that criteria, because the criteria generally is based on behavior. Do these murderous thoughts manifest themselves in their life in a way that you are actually engaging in criminal behavior? Is it causing you any kind of life disruption? Is it harming society in any way? So those are my thoughts on American Psycho. It's just kind of a fun movie. It's obviously a satire criticizing the kind of cocaine-fueled, ruthless, cutthroat, lack of empathy, hyper-capitalistic business practices of, in particular, sort of stockbroker Wall Street culture. But yeah, it's not a movie about just a straight up serial killer. So American Psycho, it's a great movie, really good performance from Christian Bale. It's really a fun movie if you view it as a satire. There's some really hilarious comedic moments. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I'll see you next time.